People claim that since the arising of the resolve for awakening, the resolve for awakening, that is the what we could also call relative bodhicitta. Yeah. People claim that since the arising of relative bodhicitta is uncertain, the vows of the bodhisattva have no support. And so here, Kyoba Rinpoche says, the vows of the bodhisattva's disciplined conduct have a support. Okay, so what does this mean? This is, let's see the commentary. Any set of vows from the pratimoksha serve as a support for the arising, abiding, and furthering of the vows of the bodhisattva. So in other words, from here we understand that at least during Kyoba Rinpoche's time, there was an opinion that the bodhisattva vow can stand on itself. That's the meaning of not having a support. It's self-sufficient, the bodhisattva vow. It can stand on itself. It doesn't need other things. There is a view, an opinion like this. And in some ways, I think you can also see this opinion or this view sometimes being communicated in our modern times. And I believe that this comes from kind of like overemphasizing how wonderful, how magnificent bodhicitta is. Yeah. So sometimes very poetic, like bodhicitta is the only thing you need, the only thing you need. If you have it, you have everything. If you don't have it, you don't have anything. Then sometimes that might give the impression, that bodhicitta is the only thing you need. And the problem from there might be, if you truly have bodhicitta, yeah, sure, no problem, But the problem with that overemphasizing that bodhicitta is the only thing you need is sometimes you feel like, oh, I don't think I have bodhicitta. Then you are at a loss. You're like, well, how do I get there? How do I get there? How do I have this feeling of genuinely, right? One thing, to free all beings from suffering, right? So even if intellectually you're like, oh yes, this is the one thing, the only thing that I need, but then there will be times, there will be days where you're like, but I don't think I have it, Then you can feel like, and then how do I get it? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it'll fall from the sky. Maybe when I meet, some Lama, my guru of many lifetimes, ta-da, it's going to happen. So here Kyoba Rinpoche says, actually, the pratimoksha vow, any set of vows from the pratimoksha, Dhammakirti says, because in the pratimoksha, there are 7 sets, 7 possibilities. Yeah? Fully ordained monk, fully ordained nun. Novice monk, novice nun. Yeah? Lay woman, layman. So these are 6 possibilities. Then the 7th one is called probationary nun. The 7th. So that's the meaning of any set of vows from the pratimoksha category can serve as a support for the arising, abiding, and flourishing of the vows of a bodhisattva. The reason is the following. Pratimoksha vows, which is, so when we say pratimoksha vows, what do we mean? To turn away from harming others based on accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil. And that is a wonderful, very succinct, but very complete definition of what the pratimoksha. Pratimoksha, prati is individual, moksha, liberation. Pratimoksha. It liberates the individual, whoever keeps these vows. Whichever individual who keeps these vows shall be liberated through them. shall be freed from entanglements, shall be freed from suffering through keeping them. So prati moksha. What is the definition? To turn away from harming others. So the essence of the pratimoksha, you could say, is not to harm others. Then what is that based on? Well, how do you go about not harming others? Accomplishing virtue, abandoning evil. From this definition of pratimoksha, you already see how even in the pratimoksha, you can say, right? Even in the pratimoksha, which is individual liberation, the basis of that individual liberation is not harming others. Right? So the ingredients for bodhisattva conduct is already found in the so-called Hinayana pratimoksha. Not harming others. To turn away from harming others based on accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil. So the pratimoksha vows are the support of the preliminary resolve for awakening. The very preliminary, the very foundations of bodhicitta vow is the pratimoksha vow. Moreover, the essence of the actualization of the resolve is to abandon non-virtue through the disciplined conduct of the vows, and to accomplish virtue through the gathering of virtuous qualities. So the pratimoksha is about not harming others. How? By, right, accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil. Then from there, when it turns into the bodhisattva vow, so what is the vow of the bodhisattva? The actualization of that resolve? What is it? No other than to abandon non-virtue through the disciplined conduct provided by the pratimoksha, and to accomplish the virtues through the gathering of the virtuous qualities, especially this is explained in the 6 paramita of the bodhisattva path. Perfection of generosity, paramita of giving, perfection of disciplined conduct, perfection of patience, perfection of joyful effort, perfection of meditative concentration, perfection of wisdom. The gathering of the virtuous qualities. And coming back to the commentary, and to possess the power to benefit others through accomplishing the purpose of beings. 3-part here. Abandon non-virtue through disciplined conduct, accomplish virtue through gathering of the qualities, and therefore gaining power, gaining ability to benefit others. These 3. Therefore, the pratimoksha vows also cause the arising, abiding, and furthering of the mantra vows. And here the 3rd point, the 3rd step, not only is the pratimoksha the basis of your individual liberation, it matures into how to truly benefit others on the bodhisattva level. And here, without a lot of kind of explanation, Chodra takes it to, and even, he says, the mantrayana samayas, the tantric samayas, are also about abandoning non-virtue, accomplishing virtues, which he will explain more when we go to the next chapter. And this chapter right now is about the bodhisattva vow. Moving on, he says, although it is taught that only the proper support of the Pratimoksha vows, namely men and women of the three continents, are ordained, it is not entirely true that the Pratimoksha vows cannot arise in other beings. So here this goes back to how in some explanations of the Pratimoksha vows, it says it can only be taken by certain groups of beings, and specifically human beings that live in the three continents. It is said that, the human beings that I think live in the northern continent are not able to take these vows, according to some explanation. But here, Chodra, following Jigten Sumgön, says, no, that is not exactly true. As in, it might be like formalistic way, in a formal way, yes, not possible for, say, chickens or a dog, right, to take Pratimoksha vows. But he says, they can still train in the Pratimoksha vows. And we already looked at this before. Then especially that discussion about, the animal realm, possible or not possible, right? In one way, you can say it's not possible. But again, as you all pointed out, we see examples such as the four friends, the elephant, the monkey, the rabbit, and the bird. Clearly, like they were observing it. They were keeping ethical conduct, disciplined conduct. So here, Chodra gives, the Dhammamukha Sutra says that the teaching of the Buddha Siji Yonten, a Naga king and his retinue kept the 8-limb approximation vows. Moreover, the authoritative scripture of the Vinaya says that the exalted one subdued the Naga king Appalala. The latter, apart from not killing, accepted the other 3 root precepts. So even like this Naga king, he did not take the precept of not killing, but he accepted the other root precepts. Furthermore, the Naga kings, Girika and Vindyujwala, took the refuge vows and the 5 precepts, which are the basis of the training. Finally, King Maitribala gave his flesh and blood to the 5 yakshas and bestowed on them the vows of the householder, who observed the few vows and the approximation vows. Since it has been taught in many such cases, the extreme position that Pratimoksha vows can be obtained by men and women of the 3 continents, can be obtained only by men and women of the 3 continents alone, is not entirely true. So he's quoting many examples of how beings in other realms can also train in the kind of the principles that I would say, the principles that are found in the Pratimoksha is a basis of training for any and all beings, no matter what realm of existence, no matter what continent. The rest of this, is debates coming from post Jigten Sumgön, meaning after Sherab Jungne, right, compiled the Gongchik. Then Sakya Pandita saw it, then he criticized. So now Chodra has to defend. So I don't know if we need to get into these debates, Maybe the second round of studying Gongchik, you can read more carefully this, Hopefully, the second round of you studying the Gongchik is not because there's a second pandemic. Oh. So you should make an aspiration to say, when the pandemic is over, I will continue studying the Gongchik and to study the Gongchik a second round. So this will establish the auspicious tendra, so that it will not only when you are stuck at home and with another pandemic that you will engage in this virtue. So if you make a promise and say, even no pandemic, for the rest of my life, I will still take time to study the Gongchik, then that forms, a positive condition for this pandemic to be over. Yeah, so the rest of that commentary is about that, answering Sakya Pandita's and Sakya Pandita's successors and all the debates that have come. Mm. Yeah, so yeah, it's about those debates. uh, one point. Footnote 668. It says that Sakya Pandita holds that the instantaneous creation of the deity during the state of cultivation, or the generation stage, creation stage. The instantaneous creation of the deity during the stage of the generation stage, or the cultivations. Sobish translate as the cultivation stage. Personally, I don't like that translation. I think generation or even creation stage, right? So Sakya Pandita holds that the style of instantaneous creation of the deity is a Kagyu invention. Yeah. He says, there's no basis for that, Sakya Pandita says. Instantaneously, so instantaneously arising as deity, rather than step by step. Sakya Pandita says, no, it has to be step by step. First, you visualize the space mandala, or first emptiness. Then within emptiness, the space mandala. Then on top of the space mandala, the water mandala. Then the fire mandala, or fire mandala. Then water mandala. Then earth mandala. And then on the earth mandala, this Mount Meru arises. Then on top of Mount Meru, a lotus blooms. On top of the lotus, sun, and then moon, and then seed syllable, and step by step. Yeah? Of course, in our longer sadhanas, we have that too. But also, in some practices, it says, in one instant, all of this manifest. So Sakya Pandita took exception to that and say, no, this is some Kagyu invention. But in chapter 5, under Vajrayana practice chapter, Kyopa Rinpoche talks about this style of instantaneous arising. So anyway, I thought there was an interesting footnote there. So if we look at Sobish's notes on 4.2, Dorje Sherab first explains the cryptic formulation of the opponent's view. Yeah? So the opponent's view, it's rather cryptic here. Yeah? It says, since the resolve for awakening is uncertain to arise. So accordingly, Dorje Sherab explains, the Pratimoksha vows arise only for men and women of the 3 continents who are without defects, but not for others. So according to strict interpretation, it says that only men and women in the 3 continents, not all 4 continents, and not only that they are without defects. So in the discussion of these vows, on who you can give the vows, who you cannot give the vows, there are all these, qualifications. The bodhisattva vows, on the other hand, are indeterminate concerning the type of being for which they arise, since they can arise in any being of the 6 families, including hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals. Therefore, the pratimoksha vow cannot be a required support for the bodhisattva vow. So some says, that pratimoksha, to say that the pratimoksha is the basis for the bodhisattva would make it impossible for many beings to have the bodhisattva vows, since the requirements for the pratimoksha is to be a human being, male or female, and living in the 3 continents. Yeah, that's the argument here. Jigten Sumgön, however, teaches that any set among the Patimoksha vows is a support for the arising, abiding, and furthering of the bodhisattva vows. And this view is usually connected with the Chittamatra system of the bodhisattva vows, said to be transmitted by Atisha. Jigten Sumgön, however, rejects this rule's limitation to only one of the 2 systems. So there are, in Tibetan Buddhism, they said that there are 2 main systems of giving the bodhisattva vows, the Chittamatra system and the Madhyamaka system. And the Madhyamaka system originates from Manjushri. The Chittamatra system, mind-only system, originates from Maitreya. So they say there are these 2. And particularly here, it is said that in the Atisha system of the bodhisattva vow, it insists that in order to receive the bodhisattva vow, you need the pratimoksha as a foundation. Whereas it is said that in the Madhyamaka way of giving the bodhisattva vow, you don't need the pratimoksha. But here it is said that Jigten Sumgön says, no, actually, you guys are missing the point. In either of those systems, pratimoksha is the basis. However, he argues, in general, pratimoksha vows and their basis are the opposite of harming others. They are the practice of accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil, and as such, they are the support of the preliminary resolve for awakening. Since the essence of the actualization of that resolve, too, has the 3 aspects of abandoning non-virtue through disciplined conduct, accomplishing virtue through gathering the qualities, and possessing the power to benefit beings by accomplishing their purposes. These 3 are otherwise known as the vows of actualization of the resolve, meaning, in other words, to refrain from wrong conduct, to gather virtuous factors, and to establish the benefit of sentient beings. So again, we have already looked at this. It is said that basically pratimoksha is the basis. So here, again, Sobish gives more context. He says, like Sakya Pandita, some Tibetan traditions teach that the bodhisattva vows are transmitted in 2 essentially different systems. One is the middle way, or Madhyamaka, or profound view system, going back to Manjughosha, another name for Manjushri, and the human teacher Nagarjuna. The other is the mind-only, Chittamatra, or vast conduct system, going back to Maitreya, the future Buddha, and the human teacher Asanga. Accordingly, Atisha would seem to be following the mind-only school, but this occurs to be an overstatement. As in the Bodhisattva vow chapter of his Bodhipata Pradipa, Atisha's famous lamp to the path of awakening, he cites masters like Nagarjuna and Shantideva, who are usually associated with the middle way system. So Sobish is saying, to say that Atisha gives the Bodhisattva vows only following the Chittamatra's tradition is an overstatement, because Atisha is trained in both systems, Madhyamaka and Chittamatra. And he, in fact, quotes from both sources. In his famous encyclopedic treasury of knowledge, Gongtru mentions 4 other eminent masters who shared Jigten Sumgön's approach, namely Abhayakaragupta and Gampopa, who were both in Jigten Sumgön's spiritual lineage, and later Drukpa Pemakarpo and Pawa Sulak Trengwa. Which is, Jigten Sumgön's position is that Atisha's system of giving the Bodhisattva vows is not just from the Chittamatra, but is from equally both traditions. And so again, then the rest is the debate, the later debate. that ensued. Not a real debate in the sense, Jiten Sumgon wasn't there to debate with anyone. It's just later criticisms raised by Sakya Pandita. And then Kagyu people responding to that. Then later, spiritual descendants of Sakya Pandita responding to the later Kagyu response. Then da-da-da, 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 da-da. Right? Lots of points to debate. But we don't need that, at this round of studying the Gongchik. So for me, this second statement, this 4.2, to me, as I started this point by saying, it's also about those times when we feel like, I don't have bodhicitta. I don't feel like I have bodhicitta. Yes, I'm doing the prayer. All mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me. We do that, and you feel like, and you feel like, but I don't feel bodhicitta, right? And you feel kind of at a loss, or even hypocritical. I'm saying that. But here, Jiten Sumgon says, actually, even in the pratimoksha, if you can go back to that level, and that level, what is it about? It is about individual liberation, right? And what is this individual liberation? This individual liberation is anchored on not harming others. How do we go about not harming others? By abandoning non-virtue and achieving virtues. Already right there, the kernel, right? The very seeds for the genuine arising of bodhicitta is already being nurtured. It's already being cultivated. So do that. And if you can add, even if it feels artificial, but if you can intellectually add that, or remember that, okay, I'm aiming for bodhicitta. Right? Even if now I don't feel bodhicitta in a very genuine, in a very strong way, I am aiming for a genuine arising of bodhicitta. But now I can focus with having the pratimoksha as the foundation for the arising of bodhicitta. To me, this second statement, at least the level that I'm at, I think this is very insightful and very helpful. Which also helps us to understand that even though it's called individual liberation, you cannot do it, by not thinking about others. Here, Chodrak's definition of pratimoksha is beautifully stated here. Right? He says, the first line of his definition, or second line, he says, the reason is the following: pratimoksha vows, which is to turn away from harming others based on accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil. What are individual liberation vows? Is the vow to turn away from harming others, which now then gives further refining of the definition of renunciation. Elsewhere, we say renunciation is also the essence of the Hinayana, right? And Je Rinpoche Tsongkhapa's definition of renunciation is a determination to be free. Now we add this. What is this determination to be free? In case determination to be free gets too abstract, it's to turn away from harming others. To turn away from harming others is the other side of that coin that says to be determined to be free. And how do we accomplish that? By abandoning, right? Abandoning evil and accomplishing virtue. When we cultivate that, that transforms into, matures into the bodhisattva vow. Because it is by abandoning evil and cultivating virtues that we develop the capacity to accomplish the happiness of all beings. Yeah, under this chapter, I believe, or maybe in the auxiliary, I don't remember. Let me quickly look. I think it is under this chapter where there is a statement that is rather, shocking in a way, where it says, even in the so-called Hinayana, the bodhisattva's vow is present. Where is that? Maybe I think it's in the auxiliary chapter. Maybe it's in the auxiliary chapter. Let me quickly look and see if I can find that statement. So that statement is rather radical because it's in the auxiliary. It says, because Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas possess the cause for Buddhahood, it will be the essence of final awakening. So it's basically, it's saying, even the so-called Hinayana, they still have this essence for full awakening, for becoming Buddhas. So, any questions or comments for this particular statement?
I feel it's very supportive, just as a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can seem like a magical, beautiful, wonderful thing, this bodhisattva vow, but it's like just sticking to
yes.
Don't do evil, cultivate, the goodness.
Yeah.
Keeps
we get
real.
carried away, right? With like, bodhisattva vow, benefiting beings, What does that mean, Yeah. It means don't harm others. And how do you go about not harming others? Abandon misdeeds, evil deeds. Cultivate the virtues. Okay, good. So we will meet on Wednesday, but we will not meet Friday. Because Friday evening the retreat starts, so I'm being lazy. So we will not meet Friday, but we will meet Monday after the retreat, I think. Let's see how lazy I get. Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Nam Ge Yu Che Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Lu Bel War Sho.
Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.